There are women among us, chosen women, who walk with the weight of heaven on their shoulders. You may not see it at first glance, but look closer. Lean in. There are marks upon them, etched not by the world's hands, but by the divine, hidden, sacred, powerful. These women, they carry storms in their bones and still stand tall. Their laughter, a rebellion. Their tears, holy water. They have been carved by life's chisel, yet they shine like diamonds in the rough. You won't find their names in the headlines, but history whispers their stories. They bear the mark of unshakable faith, believing when the night is darkest. They wear their scars like crowns. Each one a testament. I was struck down, but I am not destroyed. And when they walk into a room, the air not because they demand it, but because the very earth recognizes royalty. So I ask you, do you know a woman like this? Better yet, are you her? Look inward, sisters, your soul. For these marks are not given to the many, but to the chosen. And if you find them upon you, rise up. The world has been waiting for exactly who you are. There is a fire inside her, one that does not roar, but glows steady and unshaken. You may not see it at first. She does not always announce herself with thunder. She does not always wear her struggles on her sleeve. But make no mistake, she is a warrior, a survivor, a woman who has been bent by life's winds but refuses to break. She wakes up each morning carrying weights the world knows nothing about. Some days the weight is grief, loss so heavy it feels like walking through water. Other days it is fear whispering lies in the dark. You are not enough, but still she rises, still she moves forward. Not because she is unafraid, but because she has learned that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to keep going despite it. Look at her hand. They may seem soft, but they have held pain, wiped tears, and rebuilt what was shattered. They have clenched in frustration, then opened again in forgiveness. They have worked in silence, loved in secret, and fought battles no one will ever speak. These hands tell a story, one of resilience, of a woman who has been tested and has not folded. Listen to her laughter. It is not careless, it is defiance. Every chuckle is a refusal to let sorrow win. Every smile is a rebellion against the darkness that tried to claim her. She laughs not because life has been easy, but because she has decided that joy will be her weapon. And her silence? Oh, her silence is powerful. She does not waste words on those who will not hear her. She does not beg for a seat at tables that were never meant for her. Instead, she builds her own table. She speaks when it matters, and when she does, the earth listens. Because her words are not just sounds, they are lessons forged in fire. You see, her strength is not in never falling. It is in rising every single time. It is in the way she patches her own wounds and still finds the strength to heal others. It is in the way she stumbles but never stays down. She has been knocked to her knees more times than she can count, but she has always stood back up, taller, wiser, fiercer. Some call it endurance. Some call it grit, but those who know, those who have walked the same path, they call it sacred. Because this kind of strength is not given, it is earned. It is carved into her bones through sleepless nights, through prayers whispered through tears, through moments when she thought she could not go on. And yet she did. She is the woman who has been overlooked, underestimated, told she is too much and not enough, all at the same time. But here is the truth. The world does not decide her worth. She does, and every time she chooses to stand, to fight, to love, to hope, she proves that the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. So if you are one of these women, if you have carried burdens in silence, if you have smiled through pain, if you have loved when it was easier to walk away, know this, your strength is not hidden from those who truly see. It is your armor, your legacy, your unshakable truth. And the world is waiting for what only you can bring. Because a woman who has been shaped by struggle is not just strong, She is unstoppable. There is a knowing inside her, a quiet, unshakable certainty that lives deeper than fear, stronger than doubt. It does not come from what she sees with her eyes or hears with her ears. No, this knowing comes from somewhere sacred, somewhere beyond the noise of the world. It is the kind of faith that does not waver when the ground shakes beneath her feet. The kind that holds on even when every circumstance screams, let go. She has stood at the edge of cliffs, of heartbreak, of failure, of dreams delayed, and looked into the unknown. And while others would have turned back, she took a breath and whispered, I trust you. Not because the path was clear, but because she has learned that faith is not walking in full light. It is taking one step forward when all you have is a flicker. Think of the times she could have given up. The days when the bills piled higher than hope, when the diagnosis came like a thief in the night, when love walked out the door and left silence behind. Those were the moments faith was not a feeling. It was a fight, a decision to believe that the story wasn't over, that the pain was not the end, that the God who brought her this far would not abandon her now. And oh, how the enemy tried to shake her, how doubt whispered, where is your God now? How fear laughed and said, this time you won't make it. But she stood firm, not in her own power, but in the one who called her. She planted her feet like a tree by the water, and when the winds came, she bent but did not break, because faith had rooted her in something stronger than the storm. You've seen her prayers, not the pretty polished ones, but the raw, desperate cries in the middle of the night. The kind that come from a place so deep, only God can understand them. She does not pray because she has all the answers. She prays because she knows the one who does. And even when heaven seems silent, she keeps speaking. Even when the miracle is slow, she keeps believing. Because faith is not about getting what you want. It's about trusting the one who knows what you need. There is a boldness in her faith, too. A refusal to let the world define her limits. She dreams bigger than her bank account, loves harder than her skies, and hopes beyond what logic allows. Why? Because she serves a God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, who turns impossibilities into testimonies, who makes a way where there seems to be none. She has seen too much to go back to small things. And when the battle rages on, when the weight feels endless, she does something extraordinary. She praises, not because the struggle is over, but because she knows who wins in the end. She lifts her hands not when the victory comes, but in the middle of the war. That's the mark of unshakable faith. It does not depend on the outcome. It rests in the promise. So if today finds you weary, if your faith feels more like a flicker than a flame, remember this. The size of your faith is not what matters. It's the size of the God you believe in. And he has never lost a battle. He has never broken a promise. See, he has never failed a daughter who trusted him. You, dear woman, carry this mark, this divine knowing that even when you can't trace his heart, that even in the valley you are never alone, that what looks like an ending is really just preparation for a greater beginning. So keep believing, keep standing, keep declaring what you know is true, even when the evidence says otherwise, because faith like yours, it moves mountains. It quiets fears, it changes stories. And one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you will look back and realize every step taken in faith was leading you straight into your purpose. And that, sister, is the power of a faith that cannot be shaken. She carries them like sacred inscriptions, these marks that life left upon her skin and soul. Not flaws to be hidden, but badges of honor to be worn with quiet pride. Each one tells a story the world needs to hear, though she may never speak it aloud. These are not the wounds of defeat, but the medals of a warrior who refused to stay down. Look closely at her and you'll see them. The slight hesitation before she trusts again, the way her eyes darken at certain memories, the involuntary flinch at a familiar tone of voice. These are her battle scars that should have consumed her but didn't. The healed over places where life cut her to the bone, yet somehow, miraculously, she grew back stronger. That scar on her heart? That's where love left her bleeding, but she learned to pump her own lifeblood. The marks on her comfort. Those came from every time someone told her she wasn't good enough, smart enough, worthy enough. Until she discovered she was more than enough all along. The tender places in her spirit, those were carved out by losses that should have broken her, but instead made room for greater love to enter. She doesn't hide these scars like shameful secrets. When the light hits her just right, you can see them glowing, living proof that what was meant to destroy her became the very thing that shaped her into who she was meant to be. Her wounds have become her wisdom, her pain transformed into her power. Where she was once fragile, she is now unbreakable. Where she was once soft, she is now steel wrapped in velvet. There's a special kind of beauty in her broken places. The way a stained glass window is most magnificent where the light shines through its cracks. Her scars make her real, make her relatable, make her radiant. They are the roadmap of her resilience, the diary of her deliverance. Each one whispers, I survived this, I grew through this, I came out on the other side. Some try to shame her for these marks as if surviving makes her less rather than more. But she knows the truth, that a woman who has been through the fire and still special kind of magic. She has that rare light that only comes from having known darkness. She possesses that deep compassion that can only grow in soil fertilized by suffering. Watch how she moves through the world now, not despite her scars, but because of them. See how she spots the hurting from across the room, how she knows just when someone needs an encouraging word, how she radiates strength to those still in their own battles. Her wounds have become her superpower, her pain transformed into her purpose. That's the miracle of her scars. They stopped being just wounds the moment she decided they would become her wisdom. The day she realized her survival could become someone else's survival guide. The instant she understood that every mark life left on her was actually preparing her to leave her mark on the world. So she stands tall, her scars shining like stars in her personal constellation. Each one a reminder that she is stronger than what tried to break her. Each one proof that our wounds don't define us, how we heal from them does. Each one declaring to anyone still in their own battle, if I made it through, so can you. This is the power of a woman who wears her scars not as chains but as crowns, who understands that the most beautiful mosaics are made from broken pieces, who knows deep in her soul that her value wasn't decreased by what she survived, it was multiplied. Her scars don't speak of damage, they sing of deliverance, they don't tell of endings, they testify to new beginnings. This is the mark of the chosen woman. She turns wounds into wisdom, pain into purpose, scars into stories that change lives. And that makes her not just a survivor, but a living, breathing revolution. You can see it before she even speaks, that undefinable glow radiating from her very being. It's there in the way her eyes spark with quiet determination when faced with challenges that would make others retreat. This isn't just optimism or positive thinking. This is the sacred fire of a woman who has stared darkness in the face and refused to let it extinguish her inner light. That luminous quality in her gaze, that's the visible manifestation of a soul that has been tested by fire and emerged not just intact, but shining brighter than ever before. There's something electric about her presence, something that makes people lean in when she enters a room. It's not just beauty or charisma, it's the palpable energy of someone who knows her worth and walks in her purpose. Her eyes tell stories of midnights spent praying through tears, of days when getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain, of moments when she had every reason to quit but chose to keep going instead. That light didn't come cheap. It was earned through battles fought in the secret places of her heart. Watch how her eyes soften with compassion when she listens to someone's pain, because she remembers what it's like to need that kind of understanding. See how they flash with righteous fire when she witnesses injustice, because her light won't allow her to stay silent. Notice how they sparkle with joy during simple moments, because she's learned to find miracles in ordinary days. This is the light of hard-won wisdom, of scars transformed into stars, of pain alchemized into power. That glow about her isn't constant sunshine. Real light has shadows too. Some days it flickers like a candle in the wind when life gets heavy. But here's the miracle it gives out. There's always that ember burning deep within, waiting for the right moment to blaze up again. She's learned how to be her own source of light when the world gets dark, how to kindle her own fire when no one else will lend her a flame. People are drawn to her light like moths to a porch lamp on a summer night, not because it's the brightest, but because it's the most real. She doesn't shine to impress. She illuminates because it's her nature. Her light doesn't blind or intimidate, it warms, it guides, it reveals truth. In a world full of people dimming themselves to make others comfortable, her refusal to hide her glow is nothing short of revolutionary. What's most breathtaking is how she uses her light, not as a weapon to expose others to darkness, find their own way. She knows what it's like to stumble in the dark, so she stands as a living lighthouse for those still finding their footing. Her greatest power isn't that she never falls. It's that every time she rises, she shines just a little brighter than before. This radiance isn't about perfection. It's about authenticity. The cracks in her armor don't diminish her light. They give it somewhere to escape. Her glow comes from the sacred understanding that our broken places are where the light gets in and where our own light shines out to touch others. The very things that were meant to extinguish her became the fuel that made her shine more brilliant. And when she walks into a room full of people hiding their shadows, something miraculous happens. Her light gives others permission to switch theirs on too. One by one, faces brighten, voices grow stronger. This is the ripple effect of a woman who owns her glow. She doesn't just light her own path. She helps illuminate the way for everyone around her. So, if you've ever been told you're too much, too passionate, too emotional, too intense, the world needs your light exactly as it is. Not dimmed, not diluted, not disguised. The fire in your eyes isn't something to apologize for, it's your superpower. Those sparks of determination, those flashes of insight, that steady glow of resilience. This is your birthright as a woman who refuses to be extinguished. Keep shining, warrior. Not because it's easy, but because the world needs what only your light can reveal. Not because you'll never face darkness, but because you've proven you can blaze right through it. Your light isn't just beautiful, it's necessary. And every time you let it shine, you give someone else the courage to find their own. Watch her as she enters a room. There's a rhythm to her movements that speaks volumes before she ever utters a word. This isn't just walking. This is a sacred dance of a woman who carries her history in her hips and her future in her footsteps. Every step is intentional, every motion filled with meaning. She doesn't just pass through life, she graces it, blessing the ground beneath her with the weight of her presence and the power of her journey. There's poetry in how she carries herself, shoulders back not in arrogance, but in the quiet confidence of someone who knows her worth. Head held high not to look down on others, but because she's learned the hard way that keeping your eyes on the horizon is how you survive the storms. There's a sway to her walk that whispers of generations of women who came before her, their strength in her stride, their resilience in her rhythm. She walks like someone who understands that every step forward is a victory, no matter how small. Notice how people instinctively make way when she approaches, not out of fear, but respect. There's an energy about her movement that commands attention without demanding it. She could be wearing rags or riches and it wouldn't matter. Her grace has nothing to do with what she wears and everything to do with who she is. This is the walk of a woman who's carried heavy burdens but refused to be bowed by them, who's faced enough trials to make her bitter but chose to become better instead. Her hands move with purpose too, whether she's wiping a child's tears, creating art, or signing important documents. These hands have known both labor and tenderness, have clenched in frustration and opened in prayer. Watch how she uses them, not to take but to give, not to push away but to pull others up. Even her gestures tell a story of grace under pressure, of love and action, of strength with softness. And when life knocks her down, that's when her true grace shines brightest. She doesn't collapse dramatically, she descends with dignity, knowing that how you fall matters as much as how you rise. Yep. She takes her time gathering the lessons from the floor before standing again. Always standing again, smoothing her clothes and her spirit before continuing her walk. Each recovery is a masterclass in resilience, each comeback a testament to her unbreakable spirit. There's healing in her wake too, like footprints of hope left behind for others to follow. People notice how the air feels lighter after she's passed through, how problems seem more solvable, how burdens feel shared. She walks through the world not just for herself, but for all those who will walk the same path after her. Her stride clears obstacles for the next woman coming up behind her. Her footsteps create a smoother road for those who follow. This grace isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's the way she leans in when someone speaks their truth. The way she holds space without crowding it. The way she can be fully in a moment without rushing to the next one. Her movements teach us that grace isn't something you're born with. It's something you grow into through every challenge faced with courage. Every setback met with faith. Every heartbreak survived with love and tact. What's most remarkable is around her. Daughters stand taller after watching her. Sons learn how to respect true strength. Other women find permission to take up space just by seeing how comfortably she occupies her own. Her grace is contagious. It doesn't diminish her to share it, it multiplies. So walk on, sister, in all your grace and glory. Let them see the beauty of a woman moving through the world on her own terms. Let your steps be firm when needed and soft when called for. Let your path be marked by the lives you've touched and the hearts you've lifted. The world needs your particular kind of grace, the kind that comes not from never falling, but from learning how to fall with dignity and rise with power. Your walk is your testimony, your movement, your ministry, your presence a gift. Every step you take goes with the promise that it's possible to move through life with both strength and tenderness, both fire and grace. And that, dear heart, is how you change the world, one purposeful, powerful, graceful step at a time. She doesn't always need to raise her voice to be heard. There is a quiet about her, a deep knowing stillness that speaks louder than shouts ever could. Watch her in a room full of noise, how she listens more than she speaks, how her eyes hold understanding before her lips ever part. This is not the silence of someone with nothing to say. It is the silence of a woman who chooses her words carefully, who knows that some truths are too sacred to be rushed, some wisdom too powerful to be wasted on empty air. When she is quiet, don't mistake it for absent. Her silence is full. It carries the weight of lessons learned the hard way, of prayers whispered in the dark, of answers that came only after she stopped begging and started listening. She has lived enough to know that not every thought needs to be spoken, not every feeling needs a microphone. Some battles are won in the quiet, in the moments between heartbeats, in the sacred pause before response. People lean in when she finally speaks, not because her voice is the loudest, but because her words carry substance. She doesn't fill space with chatter, she fills souls with truth. When she does speak, it is with the kind of clarity that cuts through confusion, the kind of wisdom that settles storms. Because her words have been tempered in silence, refined in patience, tested in the fires of experience, she knows the power of language, how it can build or break, heal or harm, and so she wields it with intention. But oh, her silence is a language of its own. The way she can sit with someone in pain and say everything without saying a word. The way her steady presence alone can calm a room, can anchor a heart in chaos. She doesn't always need to fix or advise. Sometimes her quiet companionship is the balm. She understands that the deepest connections often happen in wordless spaces, in shared glances and held hands, and the unspoken understanding that says, I see you, I'm here. And when she chooses silence in the face of foolishness, when she refuses to engage in arguments that aren't worthy of her energy, that too is wisdom. She knows her worth isn't determined by winning debates, but by preserving her. She has learned that not every opinion needs her endorsement. Not every criticism deserves her attention. Her silence in those moments is not weakness, it is strategy. It is the choice to conserve her strength for what truly matters. There is a strength in her restraint, a power in her pause. She could speak, could clap back, could demand to be heard, but often she doesn't. Not because she can't, but because she won't waste her voice on what doesn't serve her soul. She saves her words for the moments they will land like seeds for the conversations that will bear fruit. She knows that sometimes the most profound statement is the one you don't make. And when she does break her silence, when she finally opens her mouth and lets truth pour out, it shakes the room. It lingers in the air like incense, like something holy. Because her words have been marinating in wisdom, distilled in the quiet places where God speaks loudest. They carry weight. They shift atmospheres. They change lives. So don't underestimate the woman who speaks less and observes more. Don't overlook the one who listens deeply before she responds. Her silence is not empty. It is incubating power. It's gathering insight. It's preparing her for the moment when her words will be needed most. And when that moment comes, when she finally shares what she's been holding in her heart, the world will lean in. Because wisdom like hers doesn't come from constant noise. It comes from knowing when to speak, when to stay quiet, and how to let your presence preach louder than your words ever could. That is the mark of a chosen woman. She doesn't just speak truth, she embodies it. And sometimes her silence says more than 1,000 speeches ever could. There's something miraculous about the way her hands move through the world, not just with skill, but with soul. When she touches something, it's never just physical, it's spiritual. She doesn't merely pass through places, she leaves them changed. A kind word that lingers in someone's mind for years. A gesture of love that becomes someone else's lifeline. A moment of encouragement that alters the course of a life. This is the power she carries in her touch. The power to plant seeds she may never see bloom, but that will grow long after she's gone. Think of the women who shaped you. The ones whose love still lives in your bones, whose words still whisper to you in your quietest moments. That's the kind of woman she is. She doesn't just exist for herself. She exists for the ones who will come after. Every meal she cooks, every lesson she teaches, every hug she gives is all part of a legacy she's building without even trying. Because love like hers doesn't stay contained. It spreads. It roots itself in the hearts of others and grows beyond her, beyond now, into a future she's helping to create. Her hands are gentle but mighty. They've wiped tears, bandaged wounds, braided hair, held trembling fingers in the dark. They've worked hard, not just for herself, but for those who depend on her. And even when she's exhausted, even when she feels like she has nothing left to give, her touch still carries life. Because she understands something sacred, that the smallest acts of love can become the biggest miracles. A hand on a shoulder can steady a wavering spirit. A note tucked into a lunchbox can become a lifelong memory. A prayer whispered over a sleeping child can shape destinies. She doesn't do it for applause. Most of the time, no one sees the sacrifices she makes, the love she pours out when no one's watching. But that's the thing about legacy, it doesn't need an audience to be real. The quietest love is often the most powerful. The moments that seem insignificant, the bedtime stories, the patient listening, the forgiveness offered again and again, those are the moments that build futures. Those are the seeds that grow into forests. And oh, how her love travels, it doesn't stop with the people she knows. It ripples out through the kindness she shows a stranger, the dignity she offers someone the world has overlooked, the hope she sparks in someone who'd forgotten what it felt like to dream. She may never know the full impact of her compassion, but that's not why she does it. She loves because it's who she is. She gives because her heart refuses to do otherwise. Even her struggles become part of her legacy, the battle she's fought. Not just for herself, but for her children, her community, the women who will walk the path after her. Every time she stood up when she wanted to sit down, every time she chose courage over comfort, every time she kept going when quitting would have been easier. She was writing a story that others would one day read and find strength in. Her resilience isn't just hers. It's a gift she's leaving behind. That's the breathtaking truth about her. She's living for more than just today. Every decision she makes, every love she offers, it's every truth she stands for. It's all part of something big. She's part of a chain of women who came before her, who poured into her. And now she's taking her place in that holy lineage. Not just receiving, but giving. Not just benefiting from legacy, but becoming one. So when she wonders if her life matters, when she questions whether her love makes a difference, here's the answer. Absolutely, undeniably, eternally. The world needs her touch, her healing, hopeful, holy touch. It needs her to keep planting seeds of love in soil that feels too rocky, too dry, too broken, because she's the kind of woman who makes things grow. And one day, maybe years from now, maybe long after she's gone, someone will stand in the shade of a tree they didn't plant, fed by fruit they didn't cultivate, strengthened by love they didn't witness. And they'll know deep in their bones that someone like her once loved fiercely enough to change the future. That's her legacy. That's her power. That's the mark of a chosen woman. She doesn't just live for today. She lives for always.